Jeanne McDonagh, a art teacher at New Canaan High School for 32 years. Welcome and thank you for being here today at the Historical Society. We're excited to be talking with you because you are part of an impressive group of women leaders in our community here in New Canaan. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Tell me a little bit about your background. I find it so fascinating. You grew up in Rockaway Beach, New York, and you twirled a baton, I hear. Tell me a little bit about your early life.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Being at the beach was so exciting. You know, riding the waves, going to the beach every day, you know, a block to the ocean. But in my generation, in the 50s, we didn't have sports. I mean, other communities may have, but we didn't have that. So what did? We roller skated, we did whatever, rode bikes, and then we all took up, a group of us, twirling baton. And of course, I did that for a long time. In high school, became the captain, and then even did it in college for a while, and kind of phased out. But, you know, that's kind of a fun thing, you know. I mean, we didn't do softball and baseball and basketball, so that was the kind of activities that would engage us during the 50s.
Sounds like a great way to grow up. Where did you go to college?
Well, I went to St. John's University, undergraduate, and then on to Rochester Institute of Technology. Did my master's in fine arts, in painting and graphic design.
Now, after college, you had some pretty interesting jobs. You worked at Disney, the World's Fair, and Shea Stadium with the Mets and the Jets. I need a few stories there.
Oh, a lot of stories there. I met my husband at Shea Stadium, and that's the latter part. But in the 60s, attending St. John's University, it was very close to Flushing Meadows Park. So they would request students to audition and for a job searching and to fulfill the many roles. And Disney, I was hired by Disney, and it was the first time Walt Disney was there. The Small World was being focused as his newest and latest project. They were building Orlando at the time. And it was a wonderful experience, and I worked there for 2 years.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
Tell me about the World's Fair.
Wow. I was a hostess there. It wasn't, you know, that's what we did. You know, we shuffled people into the boats, we did crowd control, and that's the kind of job I did there. But then at night, I also worked at Shea Stadium, because you only work when the games are in town, so you could juggle. And I was very much engaged in working. You know, that was part of my culture. You know, you had to work, and I found great jobs. You know, so I would work for the Mets and the Jets when they were in town, and continue that right through college.
Are they still teams that you follow, or do you like the Giants? Or tell me, what team are you following them still?
Well, you know, it's funny when you engage in being a fan. For me, it was very meaningful because I knew all the players. Now I'm a little more removed, so I don't follow it. My husband follows, you know, the Yankees.
What a great experience. Then
Yes.
You probably remember when the Beatles were at Shea Stadium.
Yeah, the Pope, the Beatles, oh my gosh, yeah.
Wow, what a great young life you had. Tell me a little bit, Jeanne, about your history with New Canaan. When did you come to New Canaan?
Well, we moved here from Hastings-on-Hudson in 1986, so quite a while. And we were attracted to the New England community, beautiful community. The thruway didn't run through it, you know, that was an appeal. Moving from Westchester wasn't a very big move. And we moved for the schools, we moved for the church. We wanted our children, I have 4 children, Michelle, Chrissy, Katie and Sean, they all went through the schools and were very successful. So it was a very positive move, and we're always you know, thankful that we made that choice.
How young were your kids when you moved to New Canaan?
The oldest was about to start middle school.
Okay.
And there's 6 years between the oldest and the youngest. So they were all in, you know, at one point they were all at the high school when I was there. Oh my gosh, you know, 3 of them were there.
Tell me a little bit about how you got started in art. Did you have an aha moment when you knew that that was what you wanted to be doing?
Well, as a young girl, I always liked making things. That was my strength. I enjoyed that. I excelled in art in school, excelled in math, and it just seemed like a very comfortable fit. You really didn't know. Like now everyone gets analyzed. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? There were tests. I mean, that wasn't there. You had an IQ test. That was it. So being able to do art in school was something that I really loved, and continued it all the way through college.
Yeah. Did you have a mentor, Jeanne, that got you into art, or that really inspired you?
Well, absolutely. In college, Dr. Edward Mineta. This is the first year St. John's offered an art major. And he was really excited, because he was the professor and he wanted us to do well. And he would encourage us in the summers to work in the studio. He would be there as a teacher and would hire models. We would paint. And he would do this out of the goodness of his heart. He wasn't getting paid, and we weren't paying for tuition.
What a wonderful opportunity.
I was able to do that.
Yeah.
And that really did help, because you develop better skills, and it was very encouraging. And then after that, I did work in the New York Public Schools, but found that to be more difficult and challenging. My language skills are weak, and I wasn't, even though I took Spanish for 6 years, I was really, not able to communicate with the students as well as I would have liked. So I looked for another job. And being so interested in fine arts, I started applying to colleges. And St. Thomas Aquinas College, a wonderful Sister Adele Meyer, she's passed 2 years now, really saw that, I did have the ability. She had faith in me. I said, oh my gosh, this is a good thing, So she gave me full reign. When you teach art, what do you teach? It's a challenging subject. You don't pick up a book, It's not like you have a history book. But I developed courses in design and printmaking and creative textiles and drawing and painting. Oh my gosh.
And she led you to selling work at galleries and museums in the New York area. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, well, I don't know, you might think, I think of myself sometimes as a workaholic, but when you like to do things, you do it, whether it's cooking or painting, and of course, you've got to show your work. So I did show in several galleries and did sell while I was at the college, and that was encouraging for me and encouraging for my students. And I'm still showing. I have a show. I have a work in the Fairfield 2020 Images show. It's a photography competition. It opens next week. And also at the Carriage Barn and the Members Show, which also opens in 2 weeks, the 13th, I think. So I still continue, but not at the same rate, because the time commitment. I'm not in the studio. I'm at the high school.
Right.
So I do a little bit. But I still keep my hands in. And now I'm working on developing and preparing. I have a cottage on our property, and it's now being used instead of for storage. I'll convert it to a studio. Fantastic. Yeah, I'll have more space.
So you've been an art teacher at New Canaan High School for 32 years. I would say your new title is digital art teacher, but that's probably been a title you've had for a while. What are some highlights of working at New Canaan High School and working with the students and teaching there?
Wow, there's so much, and this interview has made me think about all of those things. I've taught over 5,500 students in all these years.
That's amazing.
But all right, so I did that. Big deal. I'm an art teacher. But to see their success, that is the most exciting part of my career in retrospect. The students, I teach AP. All the students have passed. Most of them we're in the 94th percentile of the nation. They all score very high. We enter competitions. I have 7 national scholastic art winners. An art teacher is excited when you have 1. I have 7. And when the students get a medal, they send a medal to the teacher.
Wow.
So I've got these enormous medals, to share. It's kind of a fun thing. You don't think of medals in art, but yeah. So having the students respected in the community as being, gifted and talented. I am hoping that I have helped nurture that, keeping the curriculum fresh. I come with an awful lot in terms of knowledge, You know, I'm not just a photo teacher. I was a painter, and I did all these other things. So that helps me see with a different perspective. You know, I'm seeing them and encouraging them with a visual, in the visual arts, and they thrive. You know, that's a really, you know, their success. I see them in careers in the art. I could mention some names. Nerissa Chang is the head engineer for Nike. She studied at the high school. When she went on to college, she decided to do a split major in science and in the engineering part, and also in sculpture. So now she's doing all these great things. I see Alex Guerrero on TV all the time. He's on the Flea Market Flip show. He's behind the scenes. He went on to RISD and continued his studies. But there's so many stories like this. You know, they're graphic designers. And I get letters from time to time. You know, the students are just appreciative that it started here. You know, for the first time they saw Photoshop. Now they're graphic designers. They're working for Disney, or they're doing, you know, and it all started at the high school. I
was a student at New Canaan High School, and I took art every year. I was doing a lot of ceramics, but I grew up in an art household, and I felt so lucky that New Canaan High School had so much to offer in the art world. A lot of schools really don't have that for various reasons, but I think what you provide at New Canaan High School is probably so important and valuable to your students. Can you give me a quick understanding of some of the different classes that you teach, and what's happening this fall?
Wow, that's well, I teach in a digital studio now for the past since the renovation, the past 20 years. Discovered Photoshop in the late 90s, and luckily, you know, I've taken that through my courses when I teach photography, design, the Photoshop design, and that's basically the type of environment that I'm in right now. The challenge for this fall is to have this lab safe for students, have it safe for me. You know, my own family is very upset that I'm even there, you know, the fact that I'm, you know, out of the house, you know, but I love what I do, and you know, I'm taking all the safety precautions. You know, we have shields, we have spacing, we're trying to get all the software in place so the kids have access at home.
Does this environment inhibit creativity, do you think, or are people just pivoting a little bit and new types of creativity are coming out of this environment?
Well, I don't know about new. I mean, creativity on the side of the teacher. I mean, man, we were really creative on this angle. But since March, I taught remotely. Okay, so I did. I learned how to do Zoom. Have over 100. Every class was recorded, and then I would post those to my website. And if a student was absent, they could watch. Because when you're in a, you know yourself, when you're learning computers, oh sure, you have a demo, but then you try it yourself. You forgot to do step number 7 in the, you know, so all of that, you know, you really have to refresh. And they're not with me to refresh, but they could go back and watch the video. If they were absent because they couldn't get on for whatever reason, they could watch the video.
What do you think are the characteristics, the positive characteristics of a woman as an art teacher in that world? Is there something different than a male artist? Or an art teacher? Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the benefits of being a female as you do this career?
Well, it's fun. When I was teaching at the college, I had my first child, and when I went back after a very brief, you know, maternity leave, I went back to school, and I could feel the difference in how I treated people. I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm kinder. You know, I'm more sensitive." It comes with motherhood, I guess, you know. But women have the advantage, you know, because they're naturally nurturing because of the children in their lives, and they have to multitask more frequently. And that's a real plus. You know, I did my graduate thesis on the quiet siren, and it was all about the male and female art. You know, what kind of art do females project in terms of composition and all of that, and is it different from the male? type of artistic expression. So that was kind of it's interesting how that all fits together here, you know.
Yeah.
But I can't say, I think it's really a personal thing, you know. So many of the men that I work with are very sensitive. You can't draw the line here.
Okay.
You know, it's all about, you know, what you bring to the table in terms of your own perspective and your own compassion for the human race, you know, and the human personal expression. Yeah.
One of the reasons that we have you here today, Jeanne, is because we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, giving the women the right to vote. If you were growing up 100 years ago, do you think you would have gotten on board with the whole amendment and the different working with the different women and being on the forefront of that revolution back then? Do you think that's something you would have been doing?
Possibility, you know, depending on the culture at the time and where I was living, you know, all that is contingent, the environment. Obviously, if there was someone that I knew, I would for sure be involved. I probably wouldn't have thought to do it on my own, you know, this is a movement, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that you were very heavily involved with is the 70-foot mural in New Canaan High School cafeteria. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Wow, that is an amazing story. A lot of the stories that I tell are on my website, and I've made them into videos, you know, so you can see the whole story, you know, and how it evolved. But Tony Pavia was an advocate of the murals, and the murals done during the WPA, the murals in Norwalk and the town hall, and we have several.
There was a wonderful exhibit here at the New Canaan Historical Society.
Absolutely, yes. So, and when the renovation and setting up the new cafeteria back in the turn of the century, don't you love that phrase? Yeah, okay. He said he wanted a mural, you know, so a student life mural, you know. So I said, look, my intro to photo class, they will be assigned to take pictures of their friends doing what they do here. That's it. And then from there, you know, he would take those pictures. I gave him hundreds of pictures, and then he picked the ones that were best, and they were photographs.
Okay.
And then from there, how do we change a photograph into a life-size figure on a wall? You know, so there were a lot of challenges. We managed to print them in sections, so the figure was, you know, all put together, and then we used almost like paint by numbers. Using Photoshop, we could take those images and we could translate them into blocks of color. And it's a magnificent piece.
Wow, that's incredible.
So it was a great, you know, a magnificent piece.
One of the things I found interesting about your background and what you're currently doing, you're a teacher leader for the Glass House Educational Partnership. The Glass House is such an important part of New Canaan. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when I moved to New Canaan, being in art, oh yeah, Philip Johnson, got to see that house, you know. So I would always teach the kids, someday this will be yours. And we would do an architecture unit based on Philip and Frank Lloyd Wright. We were invited to the public opening that was many years ago. I think it was 05 maybe, or 06, and we took 1,000 pictures. And then from there, we also were asked to do when you go to visit the Glass House, you start out in the visitor center. And we did do some videos. I personally did the one on the brick house, which you can't even visit now. But the original, the way it was when it first opened, it's a wonderful slideshow movie that's in one of the on one of the monitors.
You talk about New Canaan with all its resources. There's obviously a lot of famous architects and different people that are part of the New Canaan fabric. John Blackley and Elliott Noyes, you've had some interactions with them. Tell me some stories.
One of the projects when the trust was just developing was to take on an oral history project. So we would get to meet these people. John Blackley, we sat in his home. You know, he's passed on now.
Yes.
What a wonderful man.
Wonderful man.
Wonderful man. Port Draper was the project engineer for the sculpture studio. I mean, we took pictures, interviewed the film department, which I don't head up, but would make them into videos, you know, some of these interviews. Pamela Gores, you know, we visited her home. at some of the John Johansson's homes, the Bridge House. And the students are field day. When we're meeting, such a time.
And it's all
bring
here
your
in
cameras.
New Canaan. It's all
yeah,
here
bring
in
your
New Canaan.
cameras.
Yeah.
And a very, very rich experience, because we would take those images. We would always make copies for whoever it was for the oral history project. They would have their images to share, and then. We would use the images for student exhibits, enrichment. You have such unusual images to share, and it's an important part of teaching photography. What are you going to take pictures of?
The Silvermine Art Center is an important part of your background. Do you spend time there now, or are you involved with them?
Not so much. I do go to the exhibits when I can. I did take some courses there. When I was asked to teach photography, I said, oh my gosh, you don't learn everything in college. I learned photo silkscreen and that type, but I didn't know how to use a camera. So I took my class there in that. I took some drawing classes there. It's such a great resource, and it's right, I live on Silvermine Road. I mean, it's
right down the street.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about balance. You're working. You have a family. You're running a household. How do you do it? Tell us a little bit about how you balance things out.
Well, I like to work. All right, so I didn't give that up. I did take a break for a couple of years, having the 4 children in 6 years. After the second one, I said, "Whoa, we gotta, step back a little bit," because they were babies. So, working with them as they got older, my own children, making sure that I could give them direction that made them happy. You try everything. I mean, you do piano, you do drawing, you do everything. What is it that they're comfortable with? And
have any of them followed in your footsteps?
Not as artists, although Michelle studied graphic design, but now she's an executive, and the vision, everything now, it's a visual world, and she's a very smart girl. So she would, she was encouraged to, IBM encouraged her to do her MBA, because she was the eyes of the internet for, these corporations. So she did follow in that sense. Katie is a vice president at NBC, very creative, but not in the same vein as I am. She's, very, I mean, my kids are all great,
Well, let's talk a little bit about your favorite things in New Canaan. Tell me what restaurant you like in New Canaan, or restaurants. Is that kind of your go-to place?
Yeah, my background is Italian, and Gino is a great cook, and it's difficult for me to go into an Italian restaurant because I'm always comparing. I make ravioli. I have a video on Grandma's lost ravioli recipe. It's just part of how I grew up. My mother was from a big Italian family, and food was an important part.
What are some of the traditions in New Canaan that you like and like to be involved with?
Oh, the parades. I mean, that's really key. To be involved in, the Memorial Day parade. My husband marches, and he's a Knight of Columbus, and it brings tears to your eyes, when you see everybody, coming out, in the spirit of the town, and I see all, friends and the little kids and the big kids, the Indian guides, we're all part of that, So that's a tradition. Certainly the singing Christmas Eve, that's really, amazing.
All right, Jeanne, one last question. What would you tell your younger self? Do you have some advice for your younger self?
Well, I'm thinking, what will I tell my older self?
I like that.
Forget about the younger, it's over, In essence, I was very shy, and I have learned to speak up. But no regrets, I mean, I followed my path. I knew at an early age I was, destined to work with my hands in some way and be creative. So I don't have any regrets. But I'm questioning, where do we go from here? Myself, future self.
Yeah, what are you looking forward to?
Yes. Well, I'm looking forward to the school year, see how it works out. You know, it's really been, it will be a challenge. I'm looking forward to spending more time with my husband, you know, maybe doing some traveling. You know, we were, this past August, we had 19 of us together for a family vacation for 2 weeks. It had its highs and its lows.
Where did you go?
We go to Groton Long Point. Mm-hmm. We rent a house there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was fun, seeing the kids grow. You know, my oldest grandchild is 15, the youngest is 1. So there's a nice spread, and the children are wonderful.
Jeanne McDonagh, art teacher for New Canaan High School, thank you so much for being here with us today. These are great stories. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to share. I have lots to share.